Hey, good morning, y'all. It is Monday, and I'm sitting here. I am doing a little studying. You know, this time in my life right now is it's requiring me to go deeper, go a little bit deeper with God. And so for the past 8 weeks, just I've been just deep into schoolwork. I got into class, and my first day in class in seminary was in August, and I was very ambitious when I started school. When I registered for my classes, I was very ambitious, and I was thinking that this was going to be similar to, like, undergrad, right? Undergrad, I was able to take a number of classes at one time and get through it. And so I thought this was going to be the same thing. So what I did is I registered for 3 classes, just starting back. And so I registered for the 3 classes, and it was Old Testament history lit and theology or something like that, and then Greek, and then hermeneutics, right? So I had these 3 classes, and I didn't know any better. I was so ambitious, and it took all, I mean, I when I tell you I got drained, it took everything, all any free time that I did have. There was actually, so there was no free time. All of my time was homework, work, school, home life. I had no time in the day for me, and it was taking away from my time with God. And so I sacrificed in that area to try to get by, because the thing that's in the forefront of my mind always is I'm in school because God sent me to school. And so I'm in seminary. What I don't want to do is fail. I can't fail these classes. If failing these classes to me was like failing God, right? So I got to do everything that I can to make sure that I get through these classes and I pass them. And so, yeah, my time with God took a little bit of a hit, and then my work schedule, fluctuating and trying to figure out how to work through that as well. And then I was trying to work out and have a schedule of working out as well, and so that didn't work out. And so my time with God and my time for study and my time for teaching really took a hit in the last 8 weeks. And so now I'm in this place where I got this extra time that I can take and now begin to listen and hear from God and study and teach. And so I'm listening, and I'm sitting here, and I'm studying, and I'm enjoying my time with God. And I can hear and I can totally understand him saying, purpose just requires a different me. Purpose requires a different you. And I get this, I know this, but I think what he wants me to do is let you know this, right? Is that purpose just requires something different from you. And a lot of the times people look at change as, I don't change, I am who I am. I do what I do. This is me, and that's supposed to be this noble thing. But the reality of it is change is good. Change can be a wonderful, wonderful thing, depending on what you're changing for, right? Purpose requires change, though. It's required. You cannot go into purpose. You can't go into, and when I say purpose, I mean, like, to me, purpose is being right in line with the will of God for my life. It's why am I here on this earth? What did God place me here to do? He brought me here. He placed me in this earth at this particular time, for this moment in time, and he did it for a reason. And so the purpose is why. And so when you find that out, when you understand why you're here, understand, or if you don't know, and you begin to understand and figure that out and get that answer, understand that it's going to require a different you can't go into purpose with issues that you were dealing with in Egypt, right? So I can't go into, I couldn't go into the promised land or go into purpose and start possessing land if I was still dealing with some things that I was dealing with in Egypt, right? The Lord's not going to do that. Purpose, the promised land, that requires something different, and it requires you to be different, and you can't change on your own. You need the power of God and the guidance and the love of God to change, right? To be delivered from the things that you were in bondage and in slavery in Egypt, right? So for me in Egypt, I was in bondage. I was in bondage to lust. I was in bondage to drugs and alcohol. I was in bondage to just even the things that were going on in my mind. I was in bondage. My thought patterns, how I saw myself, how I saw my life, how I saw people, how I saw or didn't see God. A lot of those things were poor thought patterns, and my heart, the posture of my heart was it wasn't in a place of loving people, and it wasn't even in a place of really loving myself, although I thought it was, right? So everything has to change for purpose. The way that you see life, the way that you see people, the way that you see yourself, those things have to change. The first thing, though, is it has to change the way that you see God, the way that you see your relationship with God, and then the way that you see yourself has to change. And then and so you find yourself having to take a risk. So I had to take a risk to trust God. And so in taking that risk and trusting God allowed me to get an understanding of who he is. And then getting an understanding of who he is allowed me to open up to allow him to teach me who I am. And so as he began to teach me who I am, right, I started learning how to follow him and how to follow his leading and his prompting. And I started learning how to obey him and how obedience to him was actually saving my life and not hurting me. Right. And so and then I had to get past the word obedience, because a lot of the times when you're in pride, you want to be independent, and then you hear someone say, well, you need to be obedient, and then the first thing that can come in your mind is well, I'm not a child. But you are a child of God. And so in regards to God, you are a child. You don't know. You're just like your child, right? If you have children, or a child who thinks that they know what to do and how to do things and stuff like that. They think they know what they're doing, but they really don't. And the reality is I really did not know what I was doing, and I needed my father. And so my father is the one that came to me. I had to learn who he was. I had to learn to trust him, and then I had to learn to follow him. And every day was a risk for me in the very beginning. Every single day was a risk. And I took that risk daily because, the reality of it is I was taking risks prior to him, right? Every day I was taking a risk, and that risk was leading me further and further to death. So, just trusting God, and then in trusting him, he began to teach me who I was and why I was and what my purpose was. Why am I here? What I'm supposed to be doing. And slowly but surely he began to open up to me and teach me and guide me. And so in that process, my thought patterns just had to change. I couldn't go into the promised land, and he let me know this. I couldn't go there thinking the way I thought, feeling the way that I felt, with the perceptions and things that I had. I just couldn't go into the promised land, because what I would do if he had allowed me to was damage everything. And so, the one thing that I wanted to have this video for to say is that, if you are trying to figure out what your purpose is, if you even want to access your purpose, if you want to know, why you're here, you want to follow God, you want to do big things in this life that help people, you can't go there first without a relationship with God. And if you don't have a relationship with God and you think that you are living out your purpose, I guarantee you, and I have no doubt in my mind that you're living out a life led by you. It has nothing to do with God. God's purpose for you, it could be totally different. The thing is we can't live out our purpose without the one who created us for a purpose. You can't can't live out your purpose and think that you're doing it and leave God out of the equation when he's the one who designed your purpose. He's the one who put you here for a specific time as this, such a time as this, right? So, before I started following God, I thought I was doing noble things when I would try to feed the homeless, or whatever the case may be, the little nice things that I would try to do. But the reality of it is those things weren't even my purpose. I mean, not that God doesn't want us to do that, and it's noble and it's good, but the reality is I was still out of the will of the Father. I was still out of his will, right? So purpose requires something different. It simply does. I was looking at Exodus. I'm looking at verse 25, and Moses had just led the people through the Red Sea out of Egypt. I mean, they were fresh out of Egypt. Egypt wasn't out of them, but they were fresh out of Egypt. And the Lord was kind of setting the tone in the very beginning, and he said, it says, then Moses cried out to the Lord. This is chapter 15, verse 25. It says, then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. And the reason why the Lord did this is because the people in Israel were thirsty, and they were beginning to complain and grumble against Moses because they were thirsty. And so what God did is he told Moses to throw this in the water, and it will become sweet. And so that's what he did, so that the people can drink some water. And then it says, there the Lord made a decree and a law for them. And there he tested them. He said, if you listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians. For I am the Lord who heals you. I am the Lord who heals you. But so the key thing that he said here is if you listen carefully, because he's telling them this fresh out of Egypt. They don't know that they're getting ready to take a journey into the wilderness. They don't know that, right? But they know that God has said that he's going to lead them into the promised land. I knew God was getting ready to lead me somewhere. I did not know that I was getting ready to go through a period of a wilderness period, if you will. That part I didn't know, right? So what the Lord did is he used Exodus, he used the book as a guiding point, as a compass for me to use to know. And so as I read this, I realized that the people of Israel spent much longer in the wilderness than they needed to. And the Lord had me to read that for a purpose. And so what I understood is that I better listen to every single thing God tells me to do. If he tells me to do something, I better do it. If he tells me not to do something, I better not do it. I better listen to everything he says, because I don't want my time prolonged in the wilderness. And for me, one of the things that the way that I've been a learner throughout my entire life is I've always observed. And I've been able to learn by seeing other people's failures. I've been able to learn what not to do by seeing how